Tucker Carlson, which I don't know if you know who he is or not. He's kind of a big deal.
A little bit about him.
Yeah, and he's a guy that is another one of those guys, part of the community that people like him a lot. And he's also a guy that knows how to get under people's skin, okay? Whether he does it intentionally or not, he kind of knows how to piss people off. He's on the show with this other guy that you like a lot and you're friends with. His name is Joseph Rogan. So they're on this podcast, they're talking. And Rob, if you can pull up this clip, there's this topic that comes up about
So everybody's been talking about the Joe Rogan Tucker Carlson interview, which I definitely did expect to happen because these two big names, I mean, Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, especially in the last 3 years, they've really kind of been the people who to step out for the truth and kind of just as much of the truth as possible, right? Or asking questions. I don't believe that Joe Rogan knows everything about everything, but I had appreciated him around the, time of the respiratory virus when he was just asking certain questions that I didn't hear anybody else asking. So these two sat down and everybody's getting in on this conversation because they realize that there are certain people that are actually still angry about this conversation, or the way they reacted to it was bizarre, absolutely bizarre. So this is PBD and Tulsi sitting down and having a conversation about the conversation.
Clear, I don't know if you saw this, Japan. Go ahead and play this clip, Rob. Go for it.
Well, you could say the same about the atomic bomb, right?
Yes, you could.
And you could say that we have to develop it like Oppenheimer felt before the Nazis did.
I love that. How'd that work? How'd that work?
Well,
I love, by the way, that people on my side, I'll just admit it, on the right, have spent the last 80 years defending dropping nuclear weapons on civilians. Like, are you joking?
Right.
That's just like prima facie evil.
Yeah.
If you can't, if we hadn't done that, then this, that, the other thing, that was actually a great savings. Like, no, it's wrong to drop nuclear weapons on people. And if you find yourself arguing that it's a good thing to drop nuclear weapons on people, then you are evil. Like it's not a tough one, right? It's not a hard.
And so that's the part that really got Ben up in arms, That's not even the whole thing. I'm sure Ben sat there and watched and see about that whole conversation. But what Tucker Carlson simply saying there is that we shouldn't say that it's great to do such a thing. We can say that it's necessary at certain times to make hard decisions. But to think that it's more patriotic to do it is a problem. And that's true. I love America. I'm blessed to be born here. Thank you, Jesus. Okay. But I love America so much that I want to be very realistic about America and what happens, with the decisions that we made in the past that, of course, we can't change, but that we should learn from. And that's, I think, all that he was really saying here.
It's not a hard call for me. So with that in mind, like, why would you want nuclear weapons? It's like just a mindless, childish sort of intellectual exercise to justify like, oh no, it's really good because someone else will get it. How about no? How about like spending all of your effort to prevent this from happening?
And, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting it off, but I am going to cut it off. So, the part where he says, spend all your efforts to keep this from happening. Somebody will listen to this and be like, oh, he's childish. Everybody else has nuclear weapons. If we would have really did foreign affairs, foreign diplomacy with peace through strength, with weapons, but with investing in other countries in their infrastructure and not their ideology, I think that a lot of people would have less of a reason to feel like they needed a nuclear weapon. So I just, I don't have anything to prove that, but I just kind of feel that might be the case here.
Would you kill baby Hitler, famously?
Right.
So I don't know why we're sitting back and allowing this to happen if we really believe it will extinguish the human race or enslave the human race. Like, how can that be good?
Is that the end of it? Rob, can you pull up the tweet? So that's his position, right? I want to hear your position. You live in Hawaii, all this other stuff. So there's kind of history behind it. So what other reaction do you have to it, Rob? Tell me which one you got, because there's a ton of them. Pick one of them. Just let me know which one you got. We'll pull it up.
That was a great for those of you who haven't heard that conversation yet, it's fascinating. They cover a lot of ground.
They cover a lot of
ground.
They definitely cover a lot of ground. Tulsi is right. They cover a lot of ground. Yes.
So entertaining. Probably the best conversation of the year, those two being together. I thought it was fascinating. Rob,
which is why people keep talking about it. People can't get over. They said a lot of things. There's so much. If I was to clip that conversation, I could get about a good 50 videos from it because they really were talking about a lot.
Let me pull up the tweet of Jeremy Boring. With Jeremy Boring, the co-founder, founder of Daily Wire. He had the following to say about it. He says, people who deny the moon landing or suggest America's evil for the use of atomic weapons against Imperial Japan, or who say that George Bush was behind 9/11 actually hate this country.
Maybe I am stupid for asking this. Who is Jeremy Boring?
You being serious?
I'm being serious.
Okay. He is the CEO of Daily Wire,
Okay.
like Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire. Yeah, that's who he is.
I think that's hilarious. I'm sorry, I do. I don't know if you're trying to be funny. Women, we have a way of doing things like that, but I just think that's kind of hilarious. I mean, but she wouldn't know because Jeremy Boring doesn't have his own show on the Daily Wire. Like, he is a CEO. So I could see how she didn't know.
So,
best friends with Candace, if you haven't.
But they laughed, you know what I'm saying? Because it was funny.
So
I've never met him. I don't know.
By the way, he's actually a very smart guy. We've had him on the podcast, but there's a civil war going on a little bit right now where Tucker, Ben Shapiro is obviously a very different position. Yeah. What's your position when it comes down to the nuclear war?
I like your response here, by the way.
What's the response? Are you showing that one? Okay. Jeremy is in the entire premise of being a critical thinker to question things. Some of the best podcasters and influencers are those who question what no one else is questioning. Being anti-establishment is to question the establishment's motive. By the way, he responds to that. Rob, if you want to put.
By the way, if you guys like these videos, please don't forget to hit the like button. And if you're new here, please subscribe, where we have an actual conversation, bringing reality to these situations that are happening right now, and in a balanced manner. Okay, not in some, virtue signaling to the left or right. We're just talking like Americans, talking like normal people. Thank you for watching.
Put the other one. Then he puts, it is not critical thinking to say that America never landed on the moon or that George Bush orchestrated the 9/11 attacks. It is a rejection of critical thinking. And then I had one last response to him, which was kind of an interesting one.
I love this
play
one.
this one, Rob. I understand your point. However, I'm not a Christian because I broke bread with Jesus. I've never met him face to face. That requires a level of faith I'm willing to risk taking. But it also takes faith to believe that we landed on the moon or someone's involvement in the 9/11 attacks. Having that level of unwavering faith in the U.S. government is what I'm not willing to risk.
I think that was a very good response. I do. PBD definitely, he was, he was in the headlines a little bit, the internet dragging for just a quick second about that whole Daily Jewish Wire thing. And, the Pierce Morgan clip. But like I said, I like PBD. I do, sometimes people just get it wrong sometimes. Right. But anyway, I think that's a very good point. I'm a Christian because I haven't, but not because I broke bread with Jesus, right? So I get it. As a Christian, I've never met Jesus face to face, but that's a faith that I'm willing to risk taking. I totally get that. I absolutely love the way he put this, because when I am debating people about facts and I bring facts, like I literally say, this was here in this book they cited this, and because that, and or I even talk about like the immune system or something as facts, and people will say to me, I know what you believe, and then I have to quickly cut them off and say, like, don't use that word believe. You're undermining what I'm saying. It's almost in fact an insult to me, because it's not about what I believe, it's about the facts. The only thing I believe is in Christ, in God. I'm not trying to get overly religious. I'm just saying, I'm trying to explain the point that he's making here. Yeah, I will always have that faith, right? But when it goes back to the saying about the government, yeah, that's people. People will let you down. There's a lot of things we don't know. I don't think it's so hard to understand that we are supposed to question our government. And this is what this country was founded on anyway, right? But I love the way he broke that down. I absolutely love that.
History does not favor blind faith in any government. That was my position.
Beautiful.
Great response.
Where do you stand with this?
Definitely deserve that clap. I really, really like that.
I think of, one of the famous speeches that President John F. Kennedy made when he talked about his own experience of being confronted with the possibility of a nuclear war being launched, and how he exercised the kind of leadership we should have in our country, where even as people in his own cabinet were encouraging him to take military action that he knew could spark a nuclear war with the Soviet Union, he instead chose to go behind their backs and conduct direct negotiations with the Soviet Union to walk back from the brink, because those two leaders recognized what Tucker was pointing out, that nuclear war leads to one place: the end of civilization, the destruction of living things, people, humanity on this planet. That is where nuclear war leads. And so, while I and Tucker Carlson is a good friend, we've had a lot of amazing conversations. I may say things a little differently, but what he's talking about here really is how too many people celebrate the use of nuclear weapons, and so carelessly, both pundits on TV and people in Washington and those who make a lot of money from making these nuclear weapons very carelessly talk about a nuclear war being waged as though it can be won.
She's right. Tulsi definitely hits it to the point, which is exactly what I was saying in the beginning of this episode. It's like, we should not praise the fact that we have options, nuclear options. I mean, for somebody to get mad at another person saying that, you have to wonder, like, well, what's wrong with you? This is not something that should be praised. And to me, it shouldn't even be something that's an option. We should exhaust all possibilities before we start talking nuclear. But there's people who absolutely do praise it. Like, they think like, yeah, we got the biggest bombs, period, right? And Tulsi, she's kind of threw me off a little bit last few months. Drop a comment below if you know what I mean. But because even Jimmy Dore is a little confused about what's going on with Tulsi. But anyway, here she says it right. And a lot of people get paid to say a lot of things. You do not hate the country just because you understand. Well, first of all, we cannot even go into any kind of war right now. Forget just nuclear, okay? We can't get involved in anything right now. We, to me, are hanging by a thread. Not in a doom and gloom way, but let's keep it real. We don't even have a sovereign country. Our borders are wide open. They've been wide open, okay? So this is not anything new, okay? We have inflation through the roof. The American citizen is feeling very let down. I'm seeing different kind of protests happening. They're trying to shut down protests. It's all kinds of things going on. Okay. So we are nowhere in the position. And in fact, I will even go further to say that I pray nothing ever comes to this shore right now. I mean, period, ever, but especially at this time, because Americans are so divided, even though Americans are good people, deep down they are, but a lot of people have been swayed in different directions and everything. We're so divided. It's not like right after 9/11, which I don't want another 9/11. That's a fact, where people were saying, USA, USA, US. You don't see that too much anymore. Now, I do think this is a bit of an awakening happening, but we have a lot to go through before we really wake up. But the fact is, again, diplomacy is very necessary. And I'm going to bring up Donald Trump because say what you don't have to like Trump. You don't have to, be a Trump supporter or Trump voter or whatever, right? But let's move all the clutter away. One thing we can say is that they said that he was going to bring World War III and he didn't. Another thing we can say is that he talked to everybody. And I'm not saying he's a savior. I'm not saying he's going to come here. We're going to vote him in and then, oh my God, everything's going to be perfect. Absolutely not. What it's going to take to get things back in order is serious focus from the American citizens. Okay. One man can't do it. Right. But I'm saying his foreign policy of talking to Kim Jong-un and all these people, they told him you can't talk to these people. And he still went and talked to them. Diplomacy is where you want to start first. And we are now under an administration that even before the stuff that was going on, in the Middle East, like don't forget about Ukraine, everything. This administration definitely did not conduct any kind of diplomacy when it comes to that area, the Ukraine-Russia situation. They didn't. We can go into the deepness of that about Minsk Accords and how, there was peace that was, brought to the table, and Zelensky was told like, yo, don't have that conversation. We could go on. The fact is you have to exhaust all forms of diplomacy first, and then we show our strength, which right now, like I said, the American citizen cannot fund another war, no matter how much Janet Yellen says it. So I do think that Tulsi definitely hit it perfectly here. And PBD, I like his reaction too. So like I said, a lot of people have been reacting to this conversation. It was a pretty good interview. It was pretty deep. And I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they sat down and had that talk because, we need a lot more dialogue in this country. We really do, in order to make this country work. Thank you for watching.